Michelle with two L's, and I am one half of Force of Light Entertainment. And today I'm here to give you my thoughts, my review of the third episode of Star Wars, The Acolyte. Yes, the former personal assistant of Harvey Weinstein, Leslye Headland. This is her Star Wars show. And I just want to kind of get started. I know you guys are fully aware I was not a fan, to say the least, of the first two episodes of the show. I quite frankly think it is objectively poorly written and directed television. But you can go back and watch that if you would like. But what do I think of episode 3? So I over the last week, I've kind of gone back and listened to some interviews of Leslye Headland. And in one of them, she mentioned how when she handed her the script to the Acolyte, and we are getting into episode 3. I've got notes today. We're gonna dive into that here in just a second. But when she handed Kathleen Kennedy the script, Kathleen Kennedy told her it was a good Star Wars show, but she wants a Leslye Headland show. And I think that pretty much summarized what we are getting in The Acolyte. It hit me watching this third episode of Leslye Headland's The Acolyte. I'm not going to call this Star Wars The Acolyte. This is Leslye Headland's show. It became so abundantly clear that that is exactly what this is. That this show really is her interjecting, self-inserting herself, her ideas, her beliefs into a already existing Star Wars world. And that's why, many of us, if you like it, that's great. Like what you want. I'm not going to say anything about that. But most audiences don't seem to like the show. And again, I think that is why this is not Star Wars. This is a Leslye Headland show that, again, self-inserts her beliefs and her ideas. So I saw this really quick last night. I watched the episode as soon as it came out. And I saw this article before I went to bed. And I think even Forbes has summarized this so well. And they say The Acolyte episode 3 review. One of the most disappointing Star Wars episodes ever made. And I would tend to agree with that. Again, I just continue to think that this is objectively poorly written television. I will say about this episode, it kept my interest more. I can't decide if that was because it was a little more interesting than the first two, or I just wasn't as tired. I don't know. I've yet to determine that. But even with that being said, this entire third episode, for those of you who haven't seen it, it is entirely consist of, except at the very, very end, of a flashback. It goes back to when Osha and Hippa, as I like to call her, but Osha and May are little girls, and we find out that they come from this witch coven that happens to be all women, and somehow they were created by two women. Yeah. So there's that. Science. But there's that. But that is the story, and you see how the Jedi come, and of course they are force sensitive, and they want to test these two girls. And I technically am in spoilers, by the way. I'm just going to give you an overview, but there are spoilers in this if you care. The witches, of course, don't want the girls to become the Jedi because the Jedi, they don't understand the Force. They use it in ways that aren't really acceptable to these witches. Yes, again, those evil Jedi, those impure, bad Jedi, abusing the Force, basically. So they don't really want them to become a Jedi. You see that Osha, I will say this about this episode. It made me like the character Osha more, because even as a little girl, she's like, get me the heck out of this place. I don't want to be a witch. I don't want to do this. I want to go be a good guy. I want to go join the Jedi. They seem like they're a lot better than you all. So I did appreciate that. But basically, we see throughout the story, it ends with, we see, of course, in the first two episodes, we even have a Jedi self-delete himself because of guilt. But we come to find out, lo and behold, this story, where this goes in this episode is May gets mad at Osha, who wants to become a Jedi, and of course has passed the test and is able to go to the Jedi Temple. May gets mad and literally threatens to kill her sister. I mean, it escalated really quick. It kind of came out of nowhere. She went from she loved her to she was going to kill her, and literally sets the witch coven on fire, which I would like to point out is made of stone. And somehow the fire just spreads very rapidly, like it was made of wood and there was gasoline poured on it. We'll let that one go. We'll let that one go. We'll move on. But yeah, she's the one who sets the fire. The Jedi are over here like, we didn't start the fire. I mean, that's how this show goes. And that's kind of the end. We find out somehow all the witches died. Not really sure how. They're just like dead at a point. And their two mothers are dead. So that's how that is the overall view, the overall kind of what happens summary of this actual episode, what happens in this episode. But now let me get into what I actually think about this episode. Again, it did keep my interest a little more than the first two, but it is still a very poorly written episode. And I would argue this, that especially in the case of a miniseries, Disney still does not know how to write a good miniseries. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Disney, I highly recommend you have your writers sit down and watch all seasons of Stranger Things and Wednesday. Those are two really good examples of these stories that are spread out over over 8 episodes and tell one continual story and do it very, very well. And fans, I believe, would agree with that, obviously, from their massive hits that they became. So go do that. Go check that out. But in this show, again, nothing is done intelligently in this show. This episode, in my opinion, should have been in the hands of good writers. We never would have got, actually, again, there's 8 episodes. This show is about 30 minutes long, maybe. So you're not dealing with a lot of time here. This isn't Stranger Things 8 episodes that all are an hour long. This is 30 minutes. And you took 30 minutes out of an 8-part story and you devoted all of it to going back in time. And why I say I feel that is poorly written is you should have been able with the 3rd episode to continue the story, and throughout the 8 episodes, just show flashbacks of what happened in what they did with this episode. My point I'm trying to make is we didn't need a full story here. We didn't need to see this full thing play out. This should have, again, a good writer would have just shown us bits and pieces sprinkled in over the course of 8 episodes, and that would have made it a lot more intriguing. It would have kept the mystery more alive as you go throughout what's supposed to be a murder mystery. But instead, we just get an entire episode with the witches in this witch coven, and it basically continues what I had an issue with last week, and I'll show that in a minute. And that is that this stories being told from these witches that basically view the Jedi as bad. They view the Jedi, again, as not understanding the Force. And we find out, guys, it's no longer may the Force be with you. It is now may the thread be with you. We are told by one of the main witches that it's not the Force. They explain the Force as it's a thread, because that's fun. It's this thread.
We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
Thread, and it basically that the Jedi try to wield its power and almost kind of abuse it. It sounds like, where that's not what they're supposed to do with it, because again, the witches know best, is what this episode taught us all. Not the Jedi, the witches. And here's the thing, guys. If this story was because again, Star Wars is a classic morality tale. It is good versus evil. It is what it is. That is Star Wars. So you have these witches, and if they are supposed to be the bad guys, then it's fine for them to give their ideas of the Force and them to depict the Jedi as wrong, because we would know, well, no, the Jedi are right, they're wrong. But this show doesn't do that. This show is more depicting the Jedi as wrong and these witches as these sympathetic characters that maybe had it right all along and are good. And that just doesn't work in Star Wars. It just doesn't. This isn't, what is this? Why is there a full-blown witch coven? And I know they had the witches of Dathomir and the Clone Wars. I get that. But never did it go this satanic in Star Wars. Star Wars, again, is hopeful. It's optimistic. It's something that you can let your 2-year-old watch, probably. The original trilogy, I'm saying. But let's just go ahead and take a look, just so you guys have an idea of what I'm talking about. Let me play a few seconds of this. This is from this episode. So basically, again, these witches, they want May and Osha to become a witch. This is basically, using Christian symmetry, I'll use Christian terminology. This is basically their version of baptism. These girls are getting baptized into the witch coven, basically, is what this ceremony is. But let me just play a few seconds so you see what I'm talking about here.
The power of many. The power of one.
That's what we have in Star Wars now. We have full-blown witches performing witch ceremonies in Star Wars. And again, they're portrayed as good guys. Not those evil Jedi, the witches. They're the good guys. So, okay, so what do we find? Again, so I yet again have an issue with that's clearly where they're going. The Jedi are evil. We still have yet to see how the Jedi have done, how they're to blame for this. They give the girl and everyone involved, it's your choice if she's going to come with us. May's the one that sets the fire. So I'm still confused on why they're depicted as bad, but that's definitely what they are depicted as from this, again, these witches who are supposed to be sympathetic characters, who are supposed to be good. So it's not just a villain telling you something that's inaccurate necessarily. So you also have, with this, you have that they literally quote the line, and this line in the Phantom Menace does make me eye roll to this day. But when Shmi Skywalker says to Qui-Gon Jinn, when Qui-Gon says, "Who is his father?" speaking of Anakin, and she says he has no father. And in the terms of Lucas's overarching story, Anakin is the chosen one, as they say. He's the one that was prophesied of, that he would bring balance to the Force. It makes a little more sense there. But now you have it here with these two girls, these two twins. So Anakin's really not that special. I guess the Force just makes babies all the time, apparently. At which point, again, I don't know why the Jedi are confused of why Anakin was created, because I guess this has been happening for thousands of years. We just occasionally get people that are created by the Force. And again, with Anakin, he's depicted as one of the greatest Jedis ever. And he does ultimately bring balance to the Force when he throws Palpatine over the rafters. But we now have a Jedi washout that is so special that the Force created her and this other evil twin. It makes no sense. It just literally makes no sense. And if anything, it belittles what George Lucas wrote. It takes away from the specialness of Anakin Skywalker. And at the end of the day, yes, you can tell lots of different stories that don't have anything to do with the Skywalkers, but the heart of Star Wars will always be the Skywalker saga. And it is ultimately George Lucas's work is the rise, the fall, and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. That is the story. That is what's special about he's special in Star Wars. And yet we've now made it unspecial by doing it again and not really explaining how this has happened. So what do I say about, again, I said that this is kind of Leslye Headland self-inserting herself. And by that, it hit me watching this show that the witches It is all allegory. All that we're seeing in this episode is allegory to the way Leslye Headland, I believe, views the world. And the witches are allegory for these bold, brave women that she considers bold and brave. You know, not people like Gina Carano, that not those women, not those types, not those. Only a specific type woman that Leslye Headland would view bold and brave. And the Jedi, so the witches, it's allegory for these types of women that are being held back by the patriarchy, which is the Jedi. The Jedi they represent the patriarchy, and they are trying to control who uses the Force because they're afraid of these women, you know, using it basically. Because she makes the quote, which sounds like a very good commie quote, that it's not about power, but it's about who's allowed to use it. And there's where you see kind of this SJW, this kind of Marxist ideology coming in about this power for struggle and identity groups that is also commonly referred to as woke ideology in our day and age. And that is what you have, again, inserted into Star Wars. And it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. Again, this is just a Leslye Headland show, and that's what I'm going to have to start calling it, because this is not Star Wars. This is allegory for the patriarchy, for crying out loud. And it's just nothing fits. Again, why is she bent on tearing down the Jedi? Are the Jedi flawless? No. But the Jedi are good. And that is obvious when you watch the 6 movies that George Lucas made. When you watch even the Clone Wars, it is apparent. Are they flawless? No. But are the Jedi good? Yes. They are good. They put others ahead of themselves. They are self-sacrificing in that way. They are kind. They are compassionate. They are keepers of peace. They are loving and good and pure. That is who the Jedi are. And the Jedi were there. Again, Star Wars is a morality tale, good versus evil. The Jedi were there because it is to inspire us as human beings to be better and to live a better life, to fulfill a higher calling. That's what the Jedi were for. That's what the Jedi represented. And now we've got this. And the Jedi are bad. And the witches are good. I really can't. I could keep going, but I feel that is sufficient for describing this train wreck of a TV show that is called The Acolyte. It really is. They don't understand how the Force works. They don't understand. Again, let me go back to again how they depict the Jedi kind of manipulating the Force, kind of almost abusing the Force, is how it was depicted. Again, by a character that's supposed to be sympathetic, not a villain. Yoda, in the wonderful sequence with Yoda on The Empire Strikes Back, that gets to the heart of the spirituality of Star Wars. What does he say about the Force? A powerful ally it is. And is there anything in those first 6 movies that you feel they're abusing? No. Yoda talks about it. When you talk about the Force in the original trilogy, especially, it is something that the Jedi, they flow with the Force. They begin to work in unity with the Force. They almost become one with it in a way, because they're just flowing in the Force. They let the Force flow through them. That is how it is. It's
energy surrounds us and binds us.
It's not an abuse of something. That is the dark side, twisting the Force, not the good side. So there's just a total lack of understanding of what George Lucas created. And at the end of the day, George Lucas is the creator of the Force, of Star Wars. And I'm going to go with what he said about it instead of what Leslye Headland said about it. But that's kind of my thoughts on episode 3 of The Acolyte. Again, Leslye Headland's The Acolyte. I'm not calling this a Star Wars show. It's not. I don't know what it is, but it's not a Star Wars show. It is a Leslye Headland show. But that's my thoughts on episode 3. What are you guys' thoughts? What do you think of this? It's really bad, guys. Again, we might have been too hard on the Book of Boba Fett, on Obi-Wan Kenobi. those shows are like masterpieces compared to the crap we've gotten in these first 3 episodes. And I'm also getting tired of Star Wars using diverse casting as a human shield from deflection of any valid criticism. This show is, again, objectively poorly written and directed. And that's just where I'm going to stay with this show. That it is what it is. It's not about the other stuff. This show is just, it's not good. It's not good. And it's definitely not Star Wars. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on this? Is it as worse as The Last Jedi to you? I would actually say The Last Jedi was actually more entertaining than this show. The Last Jedi had more damage, I believe, to most definitely to Star Wars than the show, but it was more entertaining than this. I mean, this show's not entertaining in the least. And last thing I will say, again, why they should have done flashbacks. They gave these children actors just too much screen time, too much beyond what I think they were ready to handle, or at least need a better director for them. And that's all I'll say with that. But yes, what do you guys think? Share your thoughts below. And I will go ahead and tell you, we are going to be covering The Acolyte on our live streams Mondays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Would love you to continue the conversation. At that point, we'll have my co-host, Leslye. She will give you her thoughts on The Acolyte, and we might have some guests and discuss it further at depth and detail. Again, Mondays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see you guys there. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right. Bye, guys.